Well, welcome. Today's April 19th, 2026. I was going to do the wedding feast in Matthew 22, but for a number of reasons, I realized that King Jehu is alluded to in chapters 21 and 22, and rather than doing the wedding feast first, I'm going to go to Jehu. I'll go to the wedding feast and then talk about Jehu, point where it relates, and then we'll come back in more detail next week. So, we were in Matthew 21, the parable of the vineyard workers. We had the triumphal entry in the donkey voices. We went through a lot of other parts, which I'll allude to. And then in chapter 22, we have the parable of the wedding feast. And at the end of the wedding feast, there's a play on words having to do with donkey voices. And there's some little connections with King Jehu. So what I'd like to do first, let's start as if we were doing the wedding feast, then we'll go to Jehu. Beginning of 22. And Jesus answered and spake unto them again in parables. He's doing it again. He's going to repeat some things he just said. He's going to answer that. Let me read through the marriage feast. I'll make a few comments. We're going to come back to this next week. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a king, a man, which made a marriage for his son. And he sent forth his servants to call them that were called to the wedding. And they would not come. Well, why wouldn't they come? They're calling them. Oops, let me go. They didn't come. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are called, Behold, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come into the marriage. Well, who wouldn't come to that? And the common, what you hear if you look this up is, oh, everyone's supposed to come in. If you don't come in, you are out of luck. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. Is that good or bad? And the remnant that was left took his servants and treated them spitefully and slew them. There's some play on words there we'll get into later. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth and sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burned up their cities. Remember that bird call, kakos, kakos, he will destroy them? Yeah. Then he said to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were bidden, called, were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, as many as ye shall find, call to the marriage. We'll see next week. It says, go to the exit ramps of the highways and just call them. What did they do? Those servants went into the highways they weren't supposed to go into, and gathered together as many as they found. They weren't supposed to gather them, they were supposed to call them, both bad and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests. Do you realize they did the exact opposite? They didn't do what the king had said to do. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there was a man which had not on a wedding garment. The king usually would provide those. And he said unto him, Friend, this is the now friend in a condescending manner, like you're in trouble. So when you hear that from the pulpit, Jesus only says that to people who are in trouble. How comest thou come in here not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. And no one knows, why was he speechless? And you look, everyone makes up a why was he speechless? I'll give you an idea later. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall weeping and gnashing of teeth. From the literal point, they have discussions in seminaries and so forth. Well, what do you do if you don't have teeth? We'll give you some dentures or something. It's a figure of speech. Now, in this whole parable, he picks out one, and that one could represent anyone, right, who's doing that. But he needs it to be one. In this whole parable, who are the only ones who did something wrong? How about the ones who didn't follow his orders and went out and grabbed everyone and brought everyone in And they weren't supposed to do that. They were supposed to call them. They weren't supposed to bring them in. They weren't supposed to fill the pews, just supposed to call. That's the only one that did something wrong, right? Many are called, few are chosen. This is the only place this verse appears in what Jesus says. The Textus Receptus adds it one other place. It doesn't fit. Shouldn't have been in there. Who are the few? How about the one guy who did something wrong, right? That gets thrown into outer darkness. Who are the many? Everyone else? And we don't know. So the few end up, and we covered this before, we're heading to it again. The few are who? The ones who did something wrong. They're the elect, the chosen. Now from 1840, it was decided that these, and earlier from the early church fathers, these elect are the important people, the few, those are chosen, and they're kind of better than everyone else. This goes completely against what Jesus appears to be saying. And once we make that connection, all sorts of things fall into place all over what Jesus says. And that's why spending a lot of time on it, because we need to know why this is, because it changes a lot of things for those who bought into the hierarchy of all the birds. If you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're one of the many there. So you need to look at this very carefully. So when I did this, I always thought what everyone else thought, oh, it's good, the wedding feast, those who didn't go were, they were in trouble. Then I went through it carefully, looked at the play on words, what the words actually mean, and I had this idea, the ones who came to the feast are the ones in trouble. And I realized from Good News Club from 50, 60 years ago, I remembered Elisha and the false prophets and Jehu. So I had to go look it up. I hadn't looked at it. I also had found that, remember that past chapter, kakos, the bird call, he's going to call them in and destroy them. And once I picked that out, oh, it's the birds, he's calling them in, he's going to get rid of them, destroy them. That's what's happening here. He's going to call them. Well, where did this happen? And once I went into Jehu and looked at the story, I realized there are a lot of words in common with what Jesus says. And Jesus' words are unique in the New Testament, but they all intersect with this story. Now, you remember, there's King Saul with Samuel, the big prophet then. Then David with Bathsheba, right, and Nathan the prophet. Then Solomon, Jeroboam, Bashri, Omri. And after Solomon, they split into two kingdoms. We just have the northern here. Then we have Ahab and Jezebel. You probably heard of Jezebel, right? Whenever there's someone who's not too good, or very good, you hear about the prophet, Elijah. Then Jehu, Elisha, who was followed Elijah. So and there's one verse before the 2 Kings 10. Then they hasted and took every man his garment and put it under him at the top of the stairs and blew the trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. Now, where they put the garments under him, and there are references that this is a reference to the donkey and riding it in peace. I couldn't find any donkey any place. But that one word, gerim, is a Hebrew word. And in this case, the translators didn't know what it meant. They didn't know what the word meant. And they didn't know if it was a figure of speech. So they just transliterated it exactly as it appeared in Hebrew. So it's interesting when they do that. And we do have the donkey voices at the end of the wedding feast. So what would you think if some cannibals have invited you over for dinner? Could you come over for dinner? Do wolves invite sheep over for dinner? Like Ben Franklin is attributed to saying. Did King Jehu invite the false prophets over for a feast? Well, yes. Now, we've had this before, this picture of there's wasp spray, and the young guy asked the checkout counter, is this wasp spray good for wasp? She says, no, it kills them. Is God good for you? Doesn't it depend on what you're doing? Can you separate yourself from love of Jesus? Well, yes. It says that over and over times. God will take care of you, right? You'll get your just rewards, whatever those are. Yeah, what do monks say at the start of fumigation day? They say, let us pray. Anyway, so we've had that. Let's go into the story. And someone's talking to Jehonadab, son of Rechab, is speaking to Jehu. Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So they made him ride in his chariot. And when he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained unto Ahab in Samaria. He came and destroyed them, till he had destroyed them, according to the saying of the Lord, which he spake to Elijah. That is, his soldiers went and destroyed everyone they could easily identify as being of Ahab and that were causing problems. What do you do with the people that are harder to find that are causing problems? You need a trap, right? Little bird call. We're going to call them in, and they're going to come running. But when the king heard thereof, he was angry, wroth. And he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Oh, this is the wedding feast. Just like Jehu, and he destroyed them with the armies. Now, if you research this, what they do is, this was the armies in 70 A.D. that destroyed the Jewish temple. We're all good managers. Because Jesus said he was going to get rid of those bad managers and replace them with other similar managers. Right? And then a few verses later, says, the kingdom of God's taken from you and given to the people. So it's up to you to do what you're supposed to be doing. Remember, but they said, kakos, he will miserably destroy. Apolesi, he will destroy them with his bird call. And Jehu gathered all the people together and said unto them, here's the little bird call. Ahab served Baal a little. Baal's the satanic god. But Jehu will serve him much. Actually, this isn't true, right? He's not going to serve him. He's saying this. It's a little bird trap. He's going to call him in. And that leader always wants you to say, aye, aye, right? Like in the Navy, aye, aye, sir. Yes, sir, 3 bags full. They used to say that at West Point. And you can guess what the 3 bags were full of. Jehu, and therefore call unto me all the prophets of Baal, all the servants. The fish bait, we'll see, is a play on words with that, although the Old Testament doesn't know that. And his priest, let none be wanting. I have a great sacrifice to do in Baal. Whoever shall be wanting, he shall not live. You better show up. But Jehu did it in subtlety, to the intent that he might destroy the worshipers of Baal. He's a little trick, a little bird call. You're going to bring them in. And if you look at there's Matthew 21. And he said to them, he will miserably destroy. Apolesi, the same word, destroy. Common word. Now, when he says he'll do it in subtlety, the Greek word is that they put in the Septuagint, paterno. It has to do with the wing, the fin. It's like a bird. It's putting under your wing. It's hiding something under your wing that they don't know, and that's what the subtlety was. Remember Jerusalem that killeth the prophets, and had the chickens under her wings, the wings there, and that's done in a facetious manner. That one I left out, when he goes to the temple, remember on the wing of the temple? It's actually the wing of the temple, it's not the pinnacle. He's at the wing, like a wing in a museum. Therefore, call unto me all the prophets of Baal, all his servants and his priests. We went through that. Call them. What does he say in the wedding feast? Go ye therefore into the highways, as many as ye shall find, call to the marriage. It doesn't say collect them and bring them in and fill the pews. He says call them. If they feel motivated, or like they should, they will come in. Now that word, call to the marriage, kalisata, and the play on words is kalisatan, call Satan. It's a call on Satan as the play on words. Now this kalisata, as call Satan, it's 13 times in the Old Testament, Septuagint. This exact word is used 1 time in the New Testament right here. Kalisata. Now, if this were the only place, we'd say, does that mean Satan? Remember the measures of meal. The woman took leaven, took false doctrine in 3 measures of meal. Why is it those strange measures? Why did he do measures 3 instead of 3 measures? Well, the play on words don't work. So it's satatria, satantria. You leave the N off and it's Satan 3, or Satan tree if you want that. Different play on words. When we do that, until the whole was leavened. What does that mean to be leavened? It means to be filled with false doctrine, right? You got some true doctrine in there, and you fill in the false stuff. And it was leavened, as emothi. Remember I said we don't know why the guy was speechless? See if you can guess. If you're leavened, you're ezimothi. If you're speechless, you're ephimothi. And so you got a little play on words and say, oh, the people who had the false doctrine were speechless. And the one who was speechless had been leavened with the false doctrine. So it's just interesting, those connect there. We make a connection there. I'll make that again next week. You've probably heard of 666 in Revelation, right? He who has wisdom, count the number of the beast. And the count is psifi satotun. Count the psifi satotun. Now, that word psifi comes from count, like a pebble, and they would vote with that. Counter votes Satan. Satatan, Satatan. You know, you're like Santa Claus, Satan Claus. You get the same idea going through there. So when I saw that and read through, oh, it says I'm supposed to count Satos or Satans. Let me do that. That's what Jesus said, or that's said there through there. So remember the 10-pin model? If you've ever read about the 7 churches, it said, he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit said unto the churches. You've probably read that, right? He says it for every single church. It's accusato, accusato, accusato ti. Hear Satan what? Hear Satan what? We have Satan in there. Does it 7 times. Why am I go through and find all those accusatos? Because he said, count the Satans, count the satos. So I did. And then you get to the throne, it's just hear Satan. And then the bowl judgments, you count the satos. And then you get it in the new heaven and the new earth. I don't know what that means, but it said count satos as Satan, so I counted them. And there they are. Now, they didn't know anything about these play on words, but it's interesting. The Hagisata is Hagisatan. Proclaim a Satan assembly for Baal. Interesting. It's like General Akbar, remember? Star Wars, it's a trap. And they're calling you in with the trap with the bird call. This is unlike around to it, which requires intuition, right? When I get around to it, we had that last week, it requires intuition. In fact, if you go to school at a university in state, you need intuition too, instead of the outtuition, yeah. Like Yogi Bear says, nobody goes there, it's too crowded. You ever heard the saying, be there or be square? That apparently, it was 1930s jazz, and a number of people think it's because you're supposed to be around for the concert, around for the, when we play the jazz. But if you're not around, you're square. And so be around or be square, be around for the concert. And so that's where people think that comes from. No one's really sure, but we do have the Satan there. But they made light of it, right? And went one to his farm. That's like they're going to the treasure in the field where the farm is. It's actually the field. Another to his merchandise. That's where the merchant, he gets the pearl great price. They're going to their merchandise, the pearls. They paid no attention. Ameli satandas. So if you just had to switch a little letter there, like Santa Claus, Satan Claus, you get, why did they not go? Did they not care? No, they were not members of Satan. You notice how these play on words, they keep appearing again and again, and you look at them, and they give you that secondary meaning as, this is what that means. So Jehu sent through all of Israel, and all the worshipers or servants of Baal came, so that there was not a man left that came not. Apostella, remember he sent apostellin, same word for sent, it's a common word. And they were supposed to call them that were called. And you're supposed to call them that were called. Notice there's no Sata there, no Satan, because these are the real, you're supposed to call those that are sincere about what they're doing. And apparently the ones that went to their merchandise, went to the field, realized this was a trap. They were just going to do what Jesus said to do, and they ignored the message. The others who wanted to feel real important wanted to go in and be at this big ceremony. So the servant, this is the wedding feast, went into the highways, right? Gathered as many. They were supposed to call them, not gather them. Both good and bad. You're supposed to call them. And if they come in, and the wedding was furnished with guests. Eplisti. The house was full. The pews were filled. That word eplisti is used in that exact form 22 times in the Septuagint, used 5 in the Greek New Testament. It's only used by Jesus one time right here. So there are a number of words that Jesus only uses once, and they all intersect. Although they were used a number of times in the Septuagint, they all intersect in this story with Jehu. Interesting. And he said unto them that was over the vestry, the garments, bring forth garments for all the worshippers of Baal. The king provides them. And he brought forth vestments, stolis, like a stole. Stoli is a stole, garment, equipment. That's where we get the word stole from. You know, I found a very old stole made out of metal fibers at a price you would not believe. It was a steel of a stale steel stole. The whole idea is these are garments, right? You put these garments on. And like in the Catholic Church, those garments, make you important, right? You wear all this. It shows your rank. And you're great compared to others. Well, we have that. Wedding feast. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there was a man which had not a wedding garment. This part is opposite of the others. Didn't have the wedding garment. And he said, friend, not having that garment. And Jehu went, and Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, into the house of Baal. He's the one that had him on the chariot. And said to the worshippers of Baal, search and look that there be here with you none of the servants of the Lord, but the worshippers of Baal only. We want to make sure that there are no worshippers of the Lord here, just the important people from Baal for Baal. Because those went out to the field and in the wedding feast went out there. Worshippers, we want to determine who are the servants of Baal, who are the servants of the Lord. And we use this little bird call to do it. Jehu. And when they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings, Jehu appointed 80 men without and said, if any of the men whom I have brought into your hands escape, he that letteth him go, his life shall be for the life of him. He didn't want any of these false prophets of Ahab, of Baal, to get out. That burnt offering is olokaftomata. That's where we get the word holocaust. It's a Greek word, not a Hebrew word. It means ola, like hologram, and burnt, kafstas, like caustic in English. So that's where that word comes from. And as it came to pass, as he had made an end, let none come forth. The city, let none of them come forth, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and the guard captains cast them out. They cast them out, right? What happens in the wedding feast? They pick one guy, right, because he wants to be a few, and cast him out to outer darkness. So they are casting him out, and went to the city of the house of Baal. City is police, and in the modern Greek, and police is city. They're related. A city has many people in it. That's where in Matthew in the talents says, I'll put you over much, police. But what the people remembered in Luke is they were going to be over top of cities. They got it a little mixed up. And they brought forth the images out of the house of Baal and burned them. The Greek, aniprison. Stele is a block of granite like the pillars of Hercules, or the stele of Hercules, or through the straits of Gibraltar, the narrow part of Gibraltar. He burnt them. What's interesting about that burn? Do you know that in the single it burned? It's used 17 times in the Septuagint. You know that exact word is used one time in the Greek New Testament? In the verse of the wedding feast. So we keep finding these, and that's why, once I did that, and then I went to Jehu, realized, I think that fits, and I started finding these words that are unique to what Jesus says. Is this an indication you should go back and look at the Septuagint? Or the words that were used? remember, if we go back a few verses, remember with the stone the builders rejected, he says, have you not read? He expects you to read these things, and it keeps on going. You're supposed to be reading these. But the king, therefore, was wroth, sent forth his armies, destroyed the murders, and burned their city. What they did, and Jehu, they burned the city and the house of Baal, anything that was connected with it. And they break down the image of Baal, and break down the house of Baal, and made it a draught house unto this day. That break is kataspazon. Ever heard of someone being spastic? Means broken, drawing out. The English word spastic comes from this Greek word spastic, and that's kata, getting down to breaking stuff. And it made it a draught house. That's a latrine. In fact, the Latin word there is latrinus. Now, it's a similar word in Greek, litronas. And by Wycliffe, that's Middle English, it's a privy. Ever heard of privy? So it comes from that Middle English. Previous. Yeah. So we have that. That's what they did to it. That's how important that was, that house of Baal. So we see there are connections there to the wedding feast. What I want to do next week is go through the wedding feast in a little more detail, looking at some of the words and the connections. And all this fits. Remember, he's going to destroy kakos, destroy these. Well, how's he going to do it? He didn't tell us, did he? Well, we go to the next parable. He's going to tell another parable, right? And this parable relates to how he's going to do it. He destroys them, but then this is the little trick to bring them in. And so we'll make some more connections there. So as far as the wedding feast, I'm whetting your appetite for more. It's the feast I can do, right? Here the Father is God King, Christ is the groom, church is the bride, and we have the parable. It even starts out, omiothi, I liken, right? And he uses this a few places. Omiosi, omoisi, omiosi, omioso, omiosi. You switch the stuff around, you get, oh Moses, the Moses. He's making a little connection here. He does that a few different places. So yeah, so that's the parable of the wedding feast. It connects to Jehu in the Old Testament. If you want, you can go back and read that about Jehu and the false prophets. And it's a little trick there for getting in those people that get destroyed. Those end up being the few, and those few, it's the many in the wide area who are the ones doing what they're supposed to be doing. You don't want to be connected with the few who take you on this scattered path for their own benefit. Okay, so thank you.